At just 25, Emma Riley possessed a gift that could alter the course of her life. Yet every morning at exactly 6:30 she pushed a squeaky cleaning cart down the pristine marble corridors of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel. Her uniform was crisply ironed, her smile courteous, her footsteps soundless. She was a ghost to the tailored suit crowd, CEOs, diplomats, venture capitalists, none of whom spared her a glance. The man moved like part of the building itself, efficient, invisible, and overlooked. But behind that quiet presence, Emma harbored a secret as vibrant as fire. 3 years earlier, she had been a top student in linguistics, specializing in American Sign Language. Her journey had begun not in a classroom, but in a hospital room after her younger brother, Marcus, lost his hearing in a car accident at age 12. Emma had become his voice, his anchor, his connection to a world that suddenly spoke in whispers. He dreamed of certification, of teaching at the deaf school downtown, of building bridges where silence had built walls. But life had other plans. Their father was laid off, their mother fell gravely ill, and Emma, still in her final semester, made a choice that hollowed her chest. She walked away from school and stepped into the world of hotel linens and sanitized tiles. The job paid. It kept food on the table and painkillers in her mother's medicine cabinet. But each time Emma scrubbed another marble floor or folded yet another crisp sheet, she felt the life she had almost lived drifting further from reach. Her once fluent hands, so used to storytelling in silence, were now mostly still, except for the stolen moments she carved out during her lunch breaks. In the dim service corridors of the Grand Metropolitan, Emma would sit cross-legged, letting her fingers dance through imaginary conversations. She interpreted muted news broadcasts on lobby TVs, signing breaking stories to an invisible audience, keeping the language alive through muscle memory and sheer will. Mrs. June Hall, the hotel's seasoned housekeeping supervisor, had seen thousands of young staffers pass through in her 32 years. But Emma stood out, not because she spoke loudly, but because she didn't. Mrs. Hall noticed the way Emma's hands moved when she thought no one was watching. She saw the quiet gravity in Emma's eyes when a deaf guest arrived, and recognition lit her up from within. "That girl's got something," Mrs. Hall often said to her husband over tea. "She wasn't built to clean rooms forever. There's something deeper." The Grand Metropolitan was no ordinary hotel. It was a gilded fortress for the powerful, a place where billion-dollar deals were signed over Eggs Benedict, where diplomatic secrets were whispered in gold-trimmed lounges. The staff lived in 2 castes. Those who were seen, the concierges, the sommeliers, the sharp-dressed front desk agents, and those who were not. Emma lived among the unseen. Still, she moved with purpose. Each room was her canvas, each bed an origami of care. She found pride in her precision. But she also knew, to the power players walking those marble halls, she was part of the backdrop, no more present than the chandelier light flickering above. It was a Tuesday when the story shifted. Emma arrived early, 5:45 a.m., changed into her navy uniform, tied her hair back, and collected her cart. She was assigned to the 40th through 45th floors, where the most elite guests stayed. Room 4247 was her third stop. She knocked. No answer. She swiped her master key and entered. The suite was nearly untouched. A closed laptop, a cold cup of coffee. But something made her pause. On the balcony stood a man, his figure taut against the pale sky. It was Caleb Morgan, CEO and co-founder of TechBridge Solutions. Caleb was a titan in assistive tech. His AI-compounded hearing aids had revolutionized accessibility for millions. At 33, he'd graced the covers of Forbes and Time, hailed not just as a tech genius, but a humanist. But what the glossy profiles didn't tell was that Caleb's mission had always been personal. A playground accident had robbed him of hearing from ages 5 to 7. Though surgery restored his senses, those silent years etched scars that never quite healed. They became the compass for his work, a desire to never let another child feel that isolated. On that balcony, Caleb wasn't the man in the magazine. He was unraveling. Success had lifted him into the stratosphere, but left him lonelier than ever. He stood staring out over the city, consumed by a quiet existential crisis. He'd built a company that helped millions, but couldn't remember the last time he felt truly seen. That's when Emma noticed. His hands were moving, hesitantly, awkwardly, but she knew the gesture. It was rough, but it was the sign for help. Without thinking, Emma stepped forward and gently tapped on the glass. Caleb turned. Their eyes met, his tired, hers steady. For a moment, the world went still. Then Emma lifted her hands and signed clearly with quiet conviction. "Good morning, you are not alone." The shift in Caleb's expression was both immediate and deeply telling. Surprise flickered across his features, but it was quickly replaced by something else, something more human. Recognition, maybe. Relief, definitely. For the first time in months, he felt genuinely seen, not by the media or shareholders, but by someone who spoke his unspoken language. 2 days later, Emma was restocking cleaning supplies in the basement storage room when her supervisor approached, with an expression that made Emma's heart tighten. It was a rare blend of confusion, concern, and something bordering on disbelief. "Emma," Mrs. Hall said cautiously, "you need to report to the 47th floor, executive offices, right away." The chatter in the room fell silent. Other housekeepers paused mid-task, exchanging worried glances. The 47th floor was sacred ground, reserved for the top brass. No housekeeper was ever summoned there unless something serious had happened. The elevator ride felt endless. Emma stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls, heart pounding. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into a world she had only brushed against while delivering extra pillows. Everything was quieter here, more deliberate. Even the air felt different, cooler, perfumed with expensive cologne and hushed power. A receptionist with perfect posture directed her toward a large corner office. The brass nameplate glinted. Caleb Morgan, CEO, TechBridge Solutions. Emma knocked, barely breathing. "Come in," a voice called. She entered slowly. Caleb looked up from behind a wide desk of polished oak, and his face softened. That same recognition was in his eyes. "Please, have a seat." He gestured to a chair opposite him. Emma sat cautiously, back straight, hands clasped tight in her lap. Everything in her body language screamed, "I don't belong here," but her gaze stayed firm. "You're Emma Riley," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. The other morning, on the balcony, I signed to you." Emma's cheeks flushed crimson. "I'm sorry if I crossed a line, sir. You just seemed... I only wanted to..." "Don't apologize," Caleb interrupted gently but firmly. "How long have you known sign language?" "Since I was 18. My brother Marcus lost his hearing in a car accident. I learned so I could talk to him. Then I studied it in college. I was going to be an interpreter." "Was going to be?" Emma's fingers twisted nervously. "I had to drop out before graduation. Family stuff. My mom got sick and I had to start working." "And your brother?" "He's finishing high school. He's obsessed with computers, wants to study engineering. He's brilliant." Emma smiled despite her nerves. Pride glowed behind her eyes. "So you're cleaning rooms to support his future?" "It's honest work, sir. I don't mind." But she did mind. Caleb saw it clearly, the intelligence in her eyes, the quickness of her hands. They were being wasted. "Emma," he said, leaning forward, "I want to ask you something unusual. My company's developing a new AI-assisted communication tool for the deaf community. We need someone who understands both the technical side and the human experience of sign language. Would you consider consulting for us?" Emma blinked, certain she'd misheard. I'm sorry, what?" "A part-time consulting role to start. You could keep your job here while we see how things go. We'd need your expertise in evaluating design choices, training our team, and ensuring cultural sensitivity." "Mr. Morgan, I appreciate that, but I'm not qualified. I never even finished my degree. I'm just a housekeeper. You're a person with specialized knowledge and lived experience. That's more valuable than a diploma." Emma shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. I gave up. I failed. People like me don't end up on development teams." Caleb's voice softened. "Can I tell you something? I was deaf for 2 years as a child. Those years taught me more about connection than any Ivy League education. That's why I built TechBridge, to help close the gap between communication and isolation. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what really mattered. You reminded me." Emma swallowed hard. "What would I actually do?" "Start by reviewing our UI designs for accessibility. Help train our AI to interpret signs more accurately. Later, help educate our team about deaf culture. And if I fail, then we learn and adjust. That's innovation, not perfection, but progress." Emma looked down at her hands. Hands that had carried sheets and scrubbed grout for 3 years, but also signed bedtime stories and decoded silent worlds. Were they capable of building something lasting? I need to think. Of course, Caleb slid a business card across the desk. "Call me when you're ready." Emma took it like it might vanish. "Thank you for seeing something I'm not sure I see yet." "It's there," he said. "The question is, are you ready to let the world see it too?" That night at home, Emma sat at the kitchen table, staring at the business card like it was a passport to another universe. Marcus was beside her, buried in equations. He glanced up. "Something's bothering you," he signed. Emma picked up the card. "I got a job offer today. Not cleaning. Something different." She explained everything. Marcus's eyes grew wider. "Emma, this is huge. It's exactly what you're meant to do." "But I didn't finish school. I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than most. You've lived it. You get it." Emma looked down. "But what if I fail? What if I prove everyone right, that I'm just a housekeeper who got lucky?" Marcus set down his pencil. "What if you succeed? What if this is your shot to build a life you dreamed of?" "The money's good," Emma murmured. "We could get Mom proper treatment. She could rest." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You gave up your dream for me. Maybe now it's time we chase them together." The next day, Emma moved differently. She watched the hotel's elite with new eyes, not envy, but curiosity. How did they own space? Command respect? During lunch, she researched TechBridge. Their accomplishments were staggering. Lives changed, access redefined. PhDs from Stanford, engineers from Google. And yet, the video that stopped her heart wasn't technical at all. It was Caleb on stage at a conference, speaking from the gut. "Technology must be made with people, not just for them," he said. "Real design starts by listening." Emma played it again and again. Something in his words echoed in her chest. 2 days later, Sarah Chen intercepted Emma at shift change. Her tone was clipped, her eyes sharper than usual. "Here you've been offered a consulting role by Guest." Word traveled fast, always did. "Yes, ma'am." "What kind of arrangement could create complications? The hotel has policies about relationships with guests." "It's not personal," Emma said. "It's professional." "Is it?" Sarah's voice dripped skepticism. "These executives live in a different world, Emma. They promise things they don't always deliver, especially to people they consider accessible. Emma flushed. The implication was loud and clear, but she met Sarah's gaze. I don't believe Mr. Morgan is like that. Maybe not, but even if he means well, are you truly prepared for the expectations of that world? Because they expect results, not excuses. Emma didn't answer immediately, but something inside her had shifted. A new voice was rising, not loud, not defiant, but steady. And for the first time, she wasn't so sure she didn't belong. Emma felt the weight of Sarah's words settle like a stone in her chest. They expect expertise. They don't have patience for learning curves or good intentions. It echoed her own worst fears, doubts she thought she had buried. She tried to shake it off. What exactly are you saying, ma'am? Sarah's expression was tight. I'm saying sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to know your limitations. You're good at what you do here. You're reliable, thorough, kind to the guests. Why risk that for something that might never work out? When Sarah walked away, Emma stood frozen in the narrow service corridor, feeling smaller than she had in years. The buzzing overhead lights seemed louder than usual. Her uniform felt too tight. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Hall found her there. You look like someone stole your last dollar, the older woman said, her voice soft with concern. Emma hesitated, then relayed the entire conversation with Sarah, her words hesitant at first but tumbling out in a rush by the end. Mrs. Hall's brow furrowed deeper with each sentence. Finally, she shook her head firmly. That woman's got her own insecurities. Don't let her paste them on you. Though what if she's right? What if I'm just naive? Mrs. Hall was quiet for a long moment, then placed a warm, calloused hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma, I've been in this business for over 3 decades. I've watched people rise, fall, fake it, and make it. And I've learned to recognize the real thing. That man didn't call you up to the 47th floor out of pity. He saw something worth investing in. The only question now is, are you brave enough to say yes to yourself? That night, Emma sat alone in her bedroom, the glow of a single lamp casting shadows across her ceiling. Caleb's business card rested beside her phone. Her thumb hovered over the call button, dialing, then hanging up 3 times. Marcus knocked and entered without waiting. You haven't called him yet. She sighed, smiling despite herself. How do you know that? Because you've got that forehead wrinkle you get when you overthink things. Marcus sat beside her. Do you remember what you told me when I was scared to try new things after the accident? Emma chuckled softly. That the worst thing isn't failing. It's never knowing what you might have done if you tried. Exactly, he signed. So, what's the worst-case scenario if you say yes? Emma thought aloud. I could mess up. I could prove I'm not as smart or capable as they think. I could fall flat in front of people who actually know what they're doing. And the worst-case scenario if you say no? She didn't hesitate. I spend the rest of my life wondering what I could have been. So, Marcus said, grinning, which of those is scarier? Emma stared at the card again. Suddenly, it didn't look like a test she might fail. It looked like a door. She picked up her phone and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. Mr. Morgan, this is Emma Riley. Caleb's voice lit up. Emma, I was hoping you'd call. Have you thought about the position? I have, and I'd like to try, if the offer still stands. It absolutely does. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? We'll go over the details, and I'll show you our current progress. Yes, sir. What time works? 3 o'clock. And Emma, thank you for being brave enough to say yes. After hanging up, Emma felt a rush she hadn't felt in years. Something exhilarating, almost childlike. Excitement. It didn't erase the fear, but it outshone it. So, Marcus grinned, when do you start changing the world? Emma smiled back. Tomorrow. I start tomorrow. The next day, Emma stood nervously outside Tech Bridge Solutions' temporary office space, smoothing her best dress. Through the glass, she could see Caleb deep in work, surrounded by sketches, monitors, and pieces of unfamiliar equipment. She knocked, and Caleb looked up with a warm smile. "Emma, come in. Welcome to organized chaos." Inside, the space was buzzing with the energy of innovation. Whiteboards crammed with ideas, prototypes half-built, software running on every screen. "This is amazing," she said, wide-eyed. "It's a mess," Caleb replied, chuckling. "We're juggling 15 problems and solving maybe 3. Come sit. Before we dive in, I want to understand your background better. Tell me how you learned ASL." Emma felt that familiar twinge of discomfort. Her learning hadn't come from degrees or institutions. It had come from life. It started at the community center, but most of it came from my brother, from living it, from being in the deaf community. Caleb nodded. "Honestly, that's more valuable than any textbook. Family ASL is a language of its own, full of shortcuts, emotion, intuition. That's exactly what our software needs to learn." He handed her a tablet. The UI was sleek but flawed. Right now, we're about 70% accurate with clear, formal signing, but in real conversations, fast, emotional, complex, it drops to 40%. Emma studied the screen. "Your gesture mapping isn't accounting for regional variance, and some expressions are misread. Like this, your software thinks it means confused, but it actually means frustrated. Show me, please." She demonstrated the difference. Tiny, but crucial. Caleb leaned forward, energized. "That's the nuance we're missing. Can you help us fix it?" For 2 hours, Emma was in her element. The imposter syndrome faded as her hands explained, her mind engaged, her passion flowed. Caleb grinned as their session ended. "You've done more in 2 hours than our last consultant did in 2 weeks. Emma blushed. "I just know what works because I've lived it." "Exactly. Tech alone doesn't change lives, understanding does." 3 weeks passed. Emma balanced her roles as best she could, but tension was growing. One morning, while cleaning the lobby restroom, she overheard voices just beyond the door. "Mr. Morgan," Sarah said, her tone cool. "Emma Riley isn't qualified for the role you've given her." Emma froze. "All due respect," Caleb replied, calm but sharp. "I know what my company needs. She's a housekeeper, not a tech consultant. She doesn't belong in your environment." "Then explain why she's resolved more issues in 4 weeks than our last expert did in 6 months. Heated footsteps faded. Caleb's voice returned, closer this time. "Emma, I know you're in there. Can we talk?" Emma emerged, face flushed. "Sorry, I wasn't trying to." "Don't apologize. What Sarah said isn't true. You are qualified. But I never finished college. I don't have a degree." Caleb smiled gently. "Neither did I. My first job? Stock boy in a gadget store. No degree, just curiosity, and everything I know now, I learned on the job." He leaned on the wall, voice low and certain. "Success isn't about a piece of paper. It's about seeing problems and solving them. And Emma, that's what you do." Tears stung her eyes. "But Sarah says I have to choose between this and the hotel." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then it's time to decide what kind of life you want. The safe one, or the one that scares you, but might just be the one you deserve." And in that moment, Emma realized she had already made her choice. Caleb's jaw tightened. "That's completely inappropriate," he said, voice low but firm. "There's no conflict of interest, only someone trying to hold on to their narrow definition of what capability looks like." Emma's voice wavered. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I should just stick with what I know I can do." "No," Caleb said, leaning forward. Listen to me carefully. In 3 weeks, TechBridge is opening a permanent office here in the city. We're looking for a director of user experience, someone who understands our technology, not just the software, but the people it's meant to serve. Someone who can translate between human need and technical possibility. He paused. The salary is $90,000 a year, full benefits, equity in the company. Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was nearly triple what she made at the hotel. Her hands trembled slightly. I want to offer you that position, Caleb continued. Not out of charity, not because I feel sorry for you, but because you're the right person. You've already shown us what we've been missing. She blinked. Director? Of user experience? Yes. You'd work closely with our development team, ensuring every product we build truly meets the needs of the deaf community. You'd speak at conferences, lead focus groups, guide innovation from the ground up. Emma felt like the floor had dropped away. It was thrilling, terrifying. Her voice was a whisper. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility? Then we fail forward. We learn together. Emma, failure isn't about trying something and not getting it right immediately. Failure is refusing to try at all because fear won. Emma thought of Marcus, of her mother's unpaid medical bills, of the dreams she'd locked in a box and placed high on a shelf. Then she thought of the past few weeks, of the energy, the purpose, the joy of solving problems that actually mattered. She took a deep breath. I'll need to give the hotel 2 weeks' notice. Caleb smiled. Does that mean you're accepting the offer? Emma nodded, her eyes wide with something between fear and exhilaration. Yes, I'm accepting. Welcome to TechBridge Solutions, Director Riley. 6 months later, Emma stepped through the doors of TechBridge's sleek new headquarters, wearing a tailored suit that now felt like second skin. The plaque on her glass office door read, Emma Riley, Director of User Experience. The turning point came during a presentation to potential investors. Emma stood before the room, presenting their latest AI interface, one designed to bridge the gap between hearing and deaf family members. Our breakthrough, she explained, isn't just about accurate sign recognition, it's about emotional intelligence. Our AI doesn't just translate, it connects. She played a video of Marcus using the device to talk with their mother. The AI didn't just convey words, it captured tone, conveyed humor, preserved nuance. This, Emma said, her voice steady and strong, is what assistive technology should do. It should help us connect not just efficiently but authentically. When the lights came up, the room erupted in applause. One investor stood. Ms. Riley, he said, visibly moved. That was the most compelling case for user-centered design I've witnessed in 2 decades. This isn't just a product, it's a bridge. A year later, Emma returned to the Grand Metropolitan, not as staff, but as the keynote speaker at a national conference on workplace diversity and inclusion. Mrs. Hall sat in the front row, now working part-time as a community liaison for TechBridge. Marcus was beside her, thriving in his first year of engineering school, scholarship fully funded by the company's new educational initiative. Emma approached the podium with quiet confidence. She looked around the ornate ballroom, a place that had once felt like a cage. 18 months ago, she began, I was cleaning rooms in this very hotel. To most people, I was invisible, just another part of the background machinery. She paused, letting the words settle. But I wasn't invisible because I lacked talent. I was invisible because the system I was in only saw my title, not my potential. Emma then told her story, the sign language she learned out of love, the college dreams she'd shelved to care for her family, the chance conversation that had changed everything. The real question, she said, is not whether there's talent in unexpected places. It's whether we're willing to change how we define where that talent comes from. She clicked to a slide showing the newest TechBridge device, a tool already helping thousands of families navigate communication gaps with dignity and ease. This product exists, she said, because someone was willing to value lived experience as much as formal education, because someone chose to look past a job title and see a whole person. The applause was thunderous. Afterwards, Sarah Chin approached her, no longer with skepticism in her eyes but humility. "That was impressive," she said. "Emma, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you." Emma studied her former manager's face. The remorse was real. "We all make assumptions," Emma replied gently. "What matters is whether we're open to changing them when we're proven wrong." "I should have supported you. I'm sorry." Emma nodded. "I appreciate that, but I've learned there's more than one path to a meaningful career. Sometimes it doesn't look like a straight line. Sometimes it starts in the service corridor." Later that evening, as Emma packed up from the event, she looked down at her hands that had once scrubbed tile and folded linens, now shaping tools that changed lives. The real transformation, she knew, hadn't been external. It wasn't about a new job title or office. It was the understanding of her own worth. Her value didn't come from credentials. It came from a heart that cared, a mind that worked, and a life that gave her insight no textbook could. The girl who once signed "Good morning, you are not alone" through a pane of glass had now learned a truth that would guide her forever. None of us are alone in our capacity for growth and contribution. What we need is someone to see us, someone to believe in us, and the courage to believe in ourselves. The silent language of possibility speaks to everyone. We just have to be brave enough to listen. And when we do, the impact can ripple out in ways we never imagine. Because every act of love, of belief, of kindness, it creates echoes we may never hear, but that someone else will always feel.